Welcome to the Nectar Bridge podcast. This is the first episode since I got to Huntsville and went full time with this business. I'm Gary Smith, and I got a passion for processes, helping people manage small businesses with both human help and the latest software systems for marketing, scheduling, and most importantly, getting paid by customers in the home services and trades. Joining me today is my good friend Mike Elkins. He runs some roundtable groups that help business owners make sense of their businesses and, even more importantly, their walk with God. He does one-to-one business coaching, but where some coaches just give you general advice, I've seen Mike get hands-on with the businesses he serves. And last but not least, he's now got an event series to give business owners another way to plug into his content. So talk about that, Mike. Where do you want to start?
Well, Gary, first of all, thank you for the invite. Honored to be a guest of yours. You hit it right. I think with me, serving other business leaders and one-on-ones and leading their teams basically have come from all the things of my past that kept me up at night.
Yeah.
Leading multiple companies of different sizes, I ran into all kind of concerns from Fortune 500 to small companies. And what I realized is over the years that really everything boils down to people. Even when the numbers come about, to correct the numbers, you need the people. Which is really how you and I got related, working off of some of my actual great CEOs and clients that I served needed some help in some of the areas that wasn't their, I would say, their masterpiece of it, what they do. And that's where you and I came in. So yes, you're right. That's what kind of got me started in doing that. And I actually started in the forum business first.
I see. Did you say the forum business?
Forum.
Okay. Talk
Yeah,
about that.
the business forum.
Right.
So what I'm talking about there is I actually started with Christian Men's Group, pulling them together, and actually would come together for a half a day or so. It would do one-on-ones after that. But during that time frame in those one-on-ones, which today is Vantage,
Right.
executive leadership. But what we do is we come together in the morning time, have a little check-in time, and then we do we work on our businesses, opportunities, challenges. No competition in the room, so that way you're free to say what you want to say, as well as everyone's got a non-disclosure agreement signed as well. So all protected. We go into some content later, a little devotion, and have a little prayer time, and just kind of work on our company. It's kind of building it on board for you as a small business.
Absolutely. And I've sat in those groups with you, and I think we're working on a additional group together that you're going to lead and I hope to be part of. So I've really
Absolutely.
seen what people can do when they get a chance to talk about an issue. Generally speaking, your friends and loved ones are frankly get enough of hearing about your business, and they may not have the perspective that you need to really get help.
That's really what it's about. At the end of the day, you have your small groups, you have your things, but there's nothing business focused. And then
Right.
at the end of the day, everybody around the table has to make payroll.
Right.
Everybody has to make sure the bills are paid. And, a lot of people have great jobs, run great companies, but at the end of the day, they could be a corporation where they don't necessarily have to worry about the income as much because they've got a better structure. But these guys are all sitting in the same seat, and it can be lonely there.
Absolutely.
And so we're trying to surround those guys to be able to make better decisions. And what happens is they grow professionally, personally, and spiritually. And end of the day, we all want to become better men and fathers and husbands.
Absolutely.
And that's really what it's all about. And then when we talk about it to those guys, I guess the point I'd make today is that, our businesses is what we do, but it's not our purpose.
Yes.
In a Christ-centered business, your focus is to take Christ to the marketplace. And in today's world, it's so challenging with people saying no, no, no. But I just read an article yesterday, actually, that in the UK, like 2/3, they're saying of their Gen Zs are turning to Christ.
Oh, wow.
They want hope. They want more. They don't want what they've seen. They're trying to find some stability. And so when you look at faith in the marketplace, many times people scare away. But at the end of the day, everyone wants it. It's just being fair to all. And that's what we try to do. Make sure we give an environment that provides a culture, provides something that you can grow in, feel stable in, But at the end of the day, there's hope.
Yeah. Amen to that. I wanted to talk about the event series, but before we do that, I also wanted to just tell about a time you helped somebody, just talk about a specific client situation where you were able to help somebody get through a business hurdle.
Well, that's a great question. We have quite a few that we're always working on the hurdles. When
Yeah.
we get good at those, right, we'll be better at the race itself. But I've got a client that really their problem was their organizational structure. They were too heavy up top. They had way too many leaders, and at the end of the day, you want leaders, but when you have too many people trying to make the call, it's really hard to pin down responsibility and execution. So we peeled that back and was able to actually move away from about 5 leaders to 3. And in that case, they have more responsibility, more clarity, communications higher, takes 2 people away from the CEO as a direct report. They've got less there. We put in an admin for that person so that now they have more of an admin person on the little things they can go to filter out to others. But those reduce those 5 calls to 3, and then really kind of like looking at building like Rangers or SEALs. Instead
Yeah.
of having such a wide, being a mile wide and an inch deep, what you do, let's pull that back and go a mile deep and an inch wide. And now, when you really get into the business of culture, mission, vision, values, and all, and really, it was back about culture too, because strategy was good. But as you may have heard the quote, culture leads strategy for lunch every day.
Yeah.
And the reason being is that when we get too many Indians or too many chiefs going different directions, we don't have clarity.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we allow each other to kind of create our own vision and mission, and we get offline. So we peeled that back. We reorganized the company, saved a little bit on payroll, but that wasn't the issue that we wanted to achieve. We wanted to achieve more clarity throughout the business, which increased productivity. Our culture. We actually have a culture meeting tomorrow at this company with everyone from 10 to 11:30. So it's really changing how we all operate and understand our roles.
Great. And I really love the fact you talked about payroll as being secondary, because so often when companies see, particularly big companies, see that something's kind of astray, uh, it seems to start and end with cost cutting. Like, where can we must have too much cost in this. How can we trim that down? And usually that's not even the biggest issue. So the situation you described with too many direct reports and too many people at the top can definitely be a recipe for problems. So let's focus on the event series a little bit. When's the next one? Where is it going to be? That sort of thing.
Well, yeah, so the next one's going to be in June. We'll actually be promoting that probably in the marketplace by the end of the week or first of next week, and you'll be able to go on to Eventbrite and see that.
Okay.
But we actually are doing lunch and learns. We're doing on the third Thursdays of the month. So our next one will be coming up in June. We don't have one in May due to travel, but we'll be coming up in June, and we'll be working with. Matter of fact, Gary, you're our guest, so we're
Yes, I
excited
am.
about that to have you talking to see. I'll let you share what you're going to be talking about, but on the bookkeeping side. But what we're going to tie in on that day is the 12 CEO core competencies and
Okay.
what it's like to build a Christ faith-based company through 12 CEO core competencies. And one of those obviously is going to be stewardship of your money, which allows us to work with you, and you come in and kind of allow us to do that. And what we're doing throughout the next month, so we'll be talking, I know in December, kind of a related category to yours, I've got a CPA coming in, and 10 ways to get out of cash trouble and stay out is the topic for that month. And so we're going to be tying in some of that. But you really hit it on the head of why we're doing this is everything's about people. And when you go try to pull levers and just cut salaries, or go cut your marketing, or go cut something quickly, then you're not really thinking out the big picture of your revenue stream, or just salaries in general. You may be cutting out an unproductive salary anyway. And so all of a sudden you save salary, but you didn't gain anything from it. You gain a little bit of payroll, but at the end of the day, you've cut your marketing, so you've decreased your revenue.
Right.
So I like to look at this as no matter what we find behind the scenes under the rocks that has to be done, people have to get it done. And
Right.
so no matter if it's a salary, overtime issue, understaffed, no matter if it's a spend problem, operational issue, if you and I work behind the scenes together, Gary, and we figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
then we have to go to someone to be able to execute what we found. And the difference in all of these businesses is not the strategic plan. It's
Right.
actually the execution.
Yes.
And that's where I find that I'm able to help the guys the most is take a competitor across the street, take you, give you the same strategy, the same playbook. The only way you win is by you execute better with the better people. And when we really understand that and pay more time to looking at our people and coaching and developing them, that's what this series is about. We'll be going through extreme ownership during one of these series. We'll be talking about emotional intelligence, the ideal team player, what that looks like, a hungry, humble, smart hiring process and developing. We'll also be doing organizational development, conflict management. You know, like I said earlier, really the easiest way for me to come around is what kept me up at night.
Right.
And I was on an island a lot of times. And so I'm really trying to build a bridge there, bridge to that night sleeping with peace to a little bit of a partnership and allowing us to address some of those concerns in a manner that will actually move us forward.
You know, you talked about being on an island. If you don't mind, can you tell about some of the positions you held before you went full time with coaching? Because I think that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I came out of college from the University of North Alabama. I went to work for Lowe's Home Centers, and about 3 years later, I became a store manager. And man, I wasn't ready. It was one of those right places, right time
Yeah.
programs, and I got promoted that way. And I was working like 60 hours a week, and all my peers were 45, 50, and I just couldn't get the job done. And part of my deal I've always been a people person, but I would allow people to talk to me at any time of the day. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't be able to have my job done. So I started out there, learned a lot from that. Lots of stories in Lowe's I could tell that really got me some cornerstones. Then I went into sales. I made a decision there because of my family. My son was getting ready to start kindergarten, and I was working, 6.5 days a week sometimes at Lowe's, trying to keep it right and ready. And I wanted to be able to be home with my son more. And so I made a change and did that, went into sales. A few years later, I opened up a business, sold out of it. And then I went to work for H&R Block and was a district manager, then a regional, and then I became vice president. The last several years I was there. I had Puerto Rico and then 12 states in the Southeast. My kids were getting up into the teen years then, ready to drive and all. And so I decided to kick back off of that and be a little bit home more during those times as well. And so I left there and went to work for a company in Scottsboro called Unclaimed Baggage Center.
Oh, yeah.
I was a president for that company for about 7.5 years. But prior to leaving there, I actually was part of a men's Christian CEO forum group in Birmingham. And that's where I really found that a lot of times we don't realize how big the island is. You're on an island when you really can't share the chaos. You've got to manage the chaos at your level. And I've always said about 90% of what a CEO does, anyone can do. But it's that 10% that's really hard.
Yes.
And knowing how to make those calls, it's really going to change the direction of your company in 3 to 5, 10 years, not just the next 30 days. And so I really learned how big the island was, actually, when I surrounded myself with other men that could help me make better decisions. And so that's really my background. And then after I left, decided to leave and do the Unclaimed the deal, that's when I was trying to figure out what to do next. And then God just kept calling me to help people get off the island or build a bridge. And so that's kind of what my calling's been now for, I guess, almost 3.5, 4 years.
Okay, great. Um, I'd love to ask questions about unclaimed baggage because I think everybody, when they hear unclaimed baggage, their mind, I know my mental picture is, man, all of the stuff. I listened to a lot of podcasts and I just heard something random about unclaimed baggage. It was just some national podcast. Just suddenly we're talking about unclaimed baggage in Scottsboro in connection with where things go when they get lost at the airport. um, I will ask because I've got to ask what is the thing that sticks in your head the most about a item that got wound up at unclaimed baggage that you remember?
I'll go with the scariest, I guess.
Okay.
We've had all kind of things back in the day that came in. I mean, literally, from we had a live rattlesnake one time in a bag, so that wasn't too great. But we actually had a briefcase that had a bomb in it, and
Oh,
it was literally everything but a detonator. And so when we
wow.
found that, it made us believe that it was probably a test bag to see how far it could get through the system.
Right.
But once it made it to my desk, I actually had the Alabama bomb unit come in, and we met over at the sheriff's at the county department area, and they came in and they started examining, pulling it apart, and realized that it wasn't going to harm anyone, but it did. It was full of really small watch batteries, so it would have really hurt somebody really bad. But literally,
Wow.
it was a complete bomb in a ball, with everything except didn't have anything to detonate it. So it was really a test. That was probably the scariest thing that we had, but we've had lots of very nice jewelry and things left behind, and just celebrities and all kind of things have been through, from leaving things on planes to whatever. So never know what you'll find. That's exactly what they say. Like, you'll never know
Okay.
what you'll find.
Well, back to the event series. Like I said, it's going to be June 19. I'll put details, I'll put your Eventbrite link in the show notes, but where is it going to be?
We're going to be at 3124 Triana Boulevard. That is, it's got a big sign out front, BHG for Better Homes and Garden, but it's
Okay.
also the Rocky City Property Management. They've just changed that to Property Management Group,
Okay.
but the sign doesn't reflect it yet. But it's 3124 Triana Boulevard.
Okay.
Uh, big building, looks like an old church because it used to be. Phenomenal setting, just a wonderful setting for an environment to do lunch and learns, and we also have some activities that we always do in our breakouts. Really fun engagement time. I really encourage you to bring your teams. We don't have to be a CEO if you just want to learn and grow more. It's open to that, and it's bring your own lunch.
Yes.
So bring your lunch. There'll be a small fee, about $25. That covers the rest of the cost, and we'll have that on Eventbrite pretty soon.
Okay, great. And like I said, I'll have that in the show notes. I'll say something about the venue myself. As you said, it looks like an old church because it is an old church,
Yeah.
but they completely renovated the inside. It's got a stage. It's got kind of open seating.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Great place to eat when you bring your lunch and have tables and so forth. So
Absolutely.
I'll talk a little bit about my segment in that upcoming event. I'm going to be talking. You invited me to talk a little bit, and I wanted to bring something that was related to what I do with businesses. So, title is Stop Letting Business Chaos Sabotage Your Passion and Profits.
Mm.
So, what I've seen myself many times with entrepreneurs is most people get into business because they want to do something. They're good with a particular skill. They know how to paint houses or roof houses or replace or repair air conditioning, plumbing, sinks, you name it. And usually, if you get into that kind of thing, you didn't get into it because you want to do paperwork. So what I want to talk about, and all this advice will apply whether especially if you're doing it yourself, but even if you're bringing in some help, be it employees or somebody like me with my business, is how do you get all that process stuff organized so that everything's predictable? You can focus on your own business, practical systems and strategies to dovetailing with what you said earlier, so you can execute your plan. Planning is great, but unless you execute it well and just in the day to day, everything's going smoothly, then no matter what you think you're doing, you're going to have chaos.
Correct.
So that's what I'm going to talk about in my little segment of that particular meeting. Simple, effective systems, staying consistent with how you treat customers, um, training everybody involved in what you expect to happen, and building guardrails. You talked about when you're at Lowe's, available to everyone, and I'm sure you many times wondered where your day went. So, talking about that, protecting your time and energy, preventing burnout. So, that's what I'm going to talk about in my 30 minutes or so of that segment. And any closing thoughts before we head out of here?
Exciting. Thank you for the invite. I highly recommend Gary and his work and his team with what he does. And if we can ever help you on the drive home, we'd be honored to become a partner.
Okay. And I would highly recommend getting in touch with Mike if you have questions and concerns about your business and you feel like you're on that island. He's a guy who can definitely help you. So that's a wrap on today's episode. Hope you enjoyed hearing about what Mike's doing for his clients in Huntsville. And as I said, I'll have info about everything he's talked about in the show notes. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, share this episode with someone who's passionate about process. And for more info on Nectar Bridge or Own the Drive Home, again, check the show notes. Thanks for listening. And until next time, keep bridging the gap between dreams and doing.